Welcome to the final lecture of the International Business course. The topic name is International Expansion and Global Market Opportunity Assessment. The why, where, and how of international expansion. Because the allure of global markets can be mesmerizing, and because companies that operate in highly competitive or nearly saturated markets at home, for instance, are drawn to look overseas or for expansions. But overseas expansion is not a decision to be made lightly, and managers must ask themselves whether the expansion will create real value for shareholders. So companies can easily underestimate the cost of entering new markets if they are not familiar with the new regions and the business permit practices common within the new regions. Because for some companies, a misstep in the foreign market can put their entire operation in the jeopardy, as happened to French retailer Carrefour after they have failed entry into Chile, which you will see later in this the part of the last session, and as well as in this section as summarized in the following learning process, which one is rational for international expansion and then how to analyze the evaluate market for international expansion process. So rational for international expansion, and the companies embark on an expansion strategy for one or more of the following reasons: to improve the cost effectiveness of their operations, and the second one is to expand into new markets for new customers, and third one is to follow global customers. For example, US chemical firm DuPont, a Brazilian aerospace conglomerate Embraer, and Finnish mobile phone maker Nokia are all investing in China to gain new customers. Schneider Logistics, in contrast, initially entered in a new market and Germany, not to get new customers but to retain existing customers who needed a firms in Germany. Thus, Schneider followed its customers to Germany. Other companies like Microprocessors, Macro Intel are building manufacturing facilities in China to take advantage of the less costly and increasingly sophisticated production capabilities. For example, Intel built a semiconductor manufacturing plant in Dalian and China for $2.5 billion, whereas a similar state-of-the-art microprocessor plant in the United States can cost $5 billion. So, according to the 2011 Global R&D Funding Forecast and R&D magazines in the year of 2010, Intel has also built plants in Chengdu and Shanghai, China, and in other Asian countries, Vietnam and Malaysia, to take advantage of lower costs. So, planning for international expansion. As companies look for growth in new areas of the world, and because they typically prioritize which countries to enter, because many markets look appealing due to their market size or low cost of production, because it is important for firms to prioritize which countries to enter first and to evaluate each country's relative merits, as well as, for example, some markets may be smaller in size but their strategic complexity is lower, which may make them easier to enter and easier from an operations points of view. Sometimes there are even substantial regional differences within a given country, and so careful investigation, research, and planning are important to do before entry. International market due diligence. International market due diligence involves analyzing foreign markets for their potential size, accessibility, and cost of operations, and buyer needs and practices to aid the company in deciding whether to invest in entering that market. And market due diligence relies on using not just published research on the markets but also interviews with potential customers and industry experts. A systematic analysis needs to be done using tools like Pestle and Gauge. So, evaluating whether to enter a new market is likely peeling on onion because there are many layers. For example, when evaluating whether to enter China, the advantage most people see immediately is its market size. Further analysis shows that majority of people in that market can't afford US products, and however, but even deeper analysis shows that while many Chinese are poor, the number of people who can afford number of products is increasing. According to Art Kleinier, getting China right strategy and business in the year of 2010. And regional differences. The next part of due diligence to understand the regional differences within the country and to not view the country as a monolith. Because, for example, although companies are dazzled by China's large market size, and deeper analysis shows that 70% of the population still lives in rural areas. This presence distribution challenges given China's vast distances. In addition, consumers in different regions speak different dialects and have different taste in food. So finally, the purchasing power of consumers varies in the different cities. City dwellers in Shanghai and Tianjin can afford higher prices than villages in a western province. So let's look at a specific example. To achieve the dual goals of reducing operations costs and being closer to a new market of customers. For instance, numerous high-tech companies identify Malaysia as an attractive country or to enter, and Malaysia is a relatively inexpensive country, and the population's English skills are good, which makes it attractive both for finding a local labor and for selling products. Because, but even in a small country like Malaysia, there are regional differences. And companies may be tempted to set up operations in the capital city Kuala Lumpur, but doing a thorough due diligence reveals that the cost in Kuala Lumpur are rising rapidly. If current trends continue, Kuala Lumpur will be as expensive as London in 5 years. Therefore, firms with primarily a lower cost advantage would do better to locate another city in Malaysia, such as Penang, which has many of the same advantages as Kuala Lumpur but does not have its rising cost, according to Ajay Chamnia, Harold Mehta, and Vikasa Sehgal. The topic name is Five Factors for Finding the Right Site Strategy and Business in the year of 2010. And next one is Understanding Local Consumers. Entering a market means understanding the local consumers and what they look for when making a purchase decision. Because in some markets price is an important issue, because in other markets such as Japan, consumers pay more attention to details such as the quality of products and the design and presentation of the product or retail surroundings than they do to price. Because the Japanese demand for perfect products means that firms entering Japan might have to spend a lot of quality management. And moreover, real estate costs are higher in Japan, as well as our freight costs such as fuel and highway charges. In addition, space is limited at retail stores and the stockyards, which means that stores can't hold much inventory, making replenishment of products a challenge. And therefore, when entering a new market, it's vital for firms to perform full so detailed market research in order to understand the market conditions and take measures to confirm them. And how to learn the needs of a new foreign market. The best way for a company to learn the needs of a new foreign market is to deploy people to immerse themselves in the market. And larger companies like Intel employ ethnographers and sociologists to spend months in emerging markets. So living in local communities and seeking to understand that talent as well as an articulate needs of local consumers. For example, Dr. Genevieve Bell, one of the anthropologists, traveled extensively across China and observing people in their homes to find out how they use technology and what they want from it. Intel then used user insights to shape its pricing strategy and its partnership plans for the Chinese consumer market. According to Navi Raju, R&D 2.0, the topic of fewer engineers, more anthropologists, the Journal of Harvard Business Review in the year of 2009. And next one is differentiation and capability. When entering a new market, companies also need to think critically about how their products and services will be different from that what competitors are already offering in that market, so that the new offering provides customers value. Because companies trying to penetrate a new market must be sure to have some proof that they can deliver to the new market, and this proof could be evidence that they have spoken with potential customers and are connected to the market. And according to the McKinsey quarterly, how do we do it, and strategic test from 4 senior executives in the year of 2011. So related to firm capability, another factors for firms to consider when evaluating which country to enter is that of corporate fit, because the corporate fit is the degree to which the company's existing practices, resources, and capabilities fit that the new market. For example, a company accustomed to operating within a detailed and biased legal environment would not find a good corporate fit in China because of the current vagaries of Chinese contract law. And according to Carol Winger, ensuring value creation through international expansion in the year of 2011 has been explained that. And whereas the law or corporate, if it doesn't preclude expanding into that country, it does signal that additional resources or costs may be necessary. And the two typical diamonds of corporate spirit are human resources practices and the firm's risk tolerance. Number one is industry dynamics. In some cases, the decision to enter a new market will depend on the specific circumstances of the industry in which the company operates. For example, companies that help build infrastructure need to enter countries where the government or large companies have a lot of capital. Because infrastructure projects are so expensive, the president of a Spanish infrastructure company, Fomento de Construcción y Contrasta, said, "We focus on those countries where there is more money and there is a gap in the infrastructure, such as China, Singapore, and the United States and Algeria." Practical advice for companies betting on a strategy of globalization, according to knowledge at WAT in the year of 2011, has been explained that. And political stability, legal security, and the rule of law, the person's adherence to law related to business contracts. For example, our important consideration prior to market entry, regardless of which industry a company is in. Because Fomento de Construcción y Contrasta learned this the hard way and ended up leaving some countries it had entered because the company's president Boldomero Falcons explained, "When you decide whether or not to invest, and one factor to take into account is the rule of law. Our ethical code was considered hard to understand in some countries, so we decided to leave during the early stages of the investment." Practical advice for companies betting on strategy of globalization, according to knowledge at Worth and the year of 2011. And the steps and the missteps in international expansion. Let's look on an example of the steps as well as the missteps in international expansion. American retailers entered the Chilean market in the mid to late 1990s. They chose Chile as the market to enter because of the country's strong economy, the advanced level of the Chilean and retail sector, and the free trade agreements signed by Chile. From the standpoint, their due diligence was accurate, but it did not go far enough, as we will see. Retail JC Penney entered Chile in 1995, opening two stores. A French retailer, Carrefour, also entered Chile in 1998. Neither company entered through an alliance with a local retailer. Both companies were forced to close their Chilean operations due to the losses they were incurring. So, analysis by Adolfo Ibanez University in Chile explained the reasons behind the failures. The managers of these companies were not able to connect with the local market, and nor did they understand the variables that affect their business in Chile. And according to the globalization of Chilean retailing of Morton in the year of 2007, and specifically the Chilean retailing market was advanced, but it was also very competitive. The new entrants like JC Penney and Carrefour didn't realize that the existing major local retailers had their own banks and offered banking service at their retail stores, which was a major reason for their profitability. The outsiders assumed that profitability in the sector was based solely on retail sales because they missed the importance of the bank ties. And another typical mistake that companies make is to assume that a new market has no competition just because the company's traditional competitors are not in the market. Now let's continue with the example and watch native Chilean retailers entered a market new to them, Peru. The Chilean retailers were successful in their own markets but wanted to expand beyond their borders in order to get new customers in new markets. The Chilean retailers chose to enter Peru, which had the same language. The Peruvian retailing market was not advanced and it did not offer credit to customers. The Chilean entered the market through partnership with the local Peruvian firms and they introduced the concept of credit cards, which was an innovation in the poorly developed Peruvian market. And entering through a domestic partner helped the Chilean because it eliminated hostility and made the investment process easier. And offering the innovation of credit cards made the Chilean retailers distinctive and offered an advantage over the local offerings. So according to the globalization of Chilean retailing, knowledge at worth in the year of 2007. Know the components of Peston analysis. Peston analysis is an important and widely used tool that helps us show the big picture of a firm's external environment, particularly as related to foreign markets. PESTEL is an acronym for the political, economical, socio-cultural, technological, environmental, and legal context in which a firm operates. A PESTEL analysis helps managers gain a better understanding of the opportunities and threats they face, as well as consequently, the analysis aids in building a better vision of the future business landscape and how the firm might compete profitably. This useful tool analysis for market growth or decline and as well as therefore the position potential and the direction for a business when a firm is considering entry into a new markets. These factors of considerable importance as well as moreover, Pestel analysis provides insights into the status of key market patterns both in terms of their present state and future trends. And next one is firms need to understand the macro environment to ensure that their strategy is aligned with the powerful forces of change affecting their business landscape. When firms exploit a change in the environment rather than simply survey or oppose the change, they are more likely to be successful. A solid understanding of pest analysis also helps manage or avoid strategies that may be doomed to fail given the circumstances of the environment. JC Pence failed the entry into Chile in the case of in the point, as well as finally understanding pestle is critical prior to entry into a new country or region. The fact that the strategy is congruent with the pestle in the home environment gives no assurance that it will also align in other countries. For example, when Lands and the online clothier sought of the expands its operation into Germany, it ran into local laws prohibiting it from offering unconditional guarantees on its products. And in the United States, Lands End has built a reputation for quality on its no questions asked money back guarantee. However, this was considered illegal under Germany's regulations governing incentive offers and price discounts. The political skirmish between the lands and the German government finally ended when the regulations banning unconditional guarantees were abolished. While the restrictive regulations didn't put Lands End out of the business in Germany, they did inhibit its growth there until the laws were abolished. There are three steps in pest analysis. First, consider the relevance of each of the personal factors to your contest. Next, identify and categorize the information that applies to these factors. Finally, analyze the data and draw conclusions. Common mistakes in this analysis concludes stopping at the second step or assuming that the initial analysis and conclusions are correct without testing and assumption and investigating alternative scenarios. So, factors flavoring and industry globalization. Markets. The more similar markets in different regions are, the greater the pressure for an industry to globalize. Coca-Cola and PepsiCo, for example, are fairly uniform around the world because the demand for soft drinks is largely the same in every country. The air from manufacturing country dominated by Boeing and Airbus also has a highly uniform market for its products, and the airlines all over the world have the same needs when it comes to large commercial jets. And next one is cost. In both of these industries, costs have a favor globalization because Coca-Cola and PepsiCo realize economies of scope and scale because they make such huge investments in marketing and promotion process. And since they are promoting coherent images and brands, they can leverage their marketing dollars around the world. Similarly, Boeing and Airbus can invest millions in new products R&D only because the global markets for their products is so large. And next one is governments and competition. Obviously, favorable trade policies encourage the globalization of markets and industries. And governments, however, can also play a critical role in globalization by determining and regulating technological standards. A railroad gauge the distance between the two steel tracks would seem to favor a simple technological standard. In Spain, however, the gauge is wider than in France. Why? Because back in the 1950s, when Spain and neighboring France were hostile to one another, The Spanish government decided that making Spanish railways incompatible with the French railways would hinder any French invasion. These are a few key drivers of industry change because, however, there are particular implications of technological and business model breakthroughs for both the pace and extent of industry change. The rate of change may vary significantly from one industry to the next, and for instance, the computing industry changes much faster than the steel industry. Nevertheless, the change in both the fields has promoted and prompted complete reconfigurations of industry structure and the competitive positions of various players. The idea that all industries change over time and that business environments are in the constant state of flux is relatively intuitive. As a strategic decision maker, you need to ask yourself this question: how accurately does a current industry structure, as well as which is relatively easy to identify and predict future industry conditions level? The history and role of a scenario planning and analysis process, because strategic leaders used information revealed the applications of Western analysis, because the global dimensions and the CAGE analysis to uncover what the traditional SWOT framework calls opportunities and threats, because a SWOT strengths or weaknesses, opportunities and threats assessment is a strategic management tool that helps you to take stock of internal characteristics or its strengths and weaknesses such that any action plans builds on what it does well while overcoming or working around weaknesses. The SWOT assessment also helps a company access external environment conditions or opportunities and threats that favor or the threaten our organization strategy. In particular, you can use it to evaluate the implications of your industry analysis, both for your focal firm specifically and for the industry in general. However, SWOT assessment works best within one situation or scenario, and it provides a little direction when you are uncertain about the potential changes to critical features of the scenario. So scenario planning can help in these cases. The next one is scenario planning. Scenario planning helps leaders develop a detailed, internally consistent picture of range of plausible outcomes as an industry evolves over time. You can also incorporate the results of scenario planning into your strategy formulation and implementation process. Understanding the pestle conditions as well as the level, pace, and the drivers of industry globalization and the CAGE framework will probably equip you with some insight into outcomes of certain scenarios. The purpose of scenario planning, however, is to provide a bigger picture and one in which you can see specific trends and uncertainties. And developed in the 1950s at the global petroleum giant Shell, the technique is now regarded as a valuable tool for integrating changes and uncertainties in the external context into overall strategy. And unlike forecast scenarios are not straight line and one factor projections from present to future, rather they are complex, dynamic, interactive stories as told from a future perspective. To develop useful scenarios, executives need a rich understanding of the industry along with a broad knowledge of these diverse pestle and the global conditions that are most likely to affect them. Okay, my dear students, I hope you have enjoyed the session now. Thank you once again. Thank you all.